All right, so hi everybody. What's up? This is Mike. So we're going to take a look at the Nintendo 2 Switch trailer. Everything that we know about it, I think there's so many leaks of what it looks like, and as I've heard that Nintendo is absolutely furious that pretty much everything about the system has actually leaked out. So what I heard was that originally this Switch 2 trailer or whatever was supposed to launch like about half a year ago. And maybe the Switch 2 could have come out at the end of 2024 for Christmas, right? Because that's what people want. They want the thing to launch before Christmas because that's where all the big sales are. Why didn't it? I think the reason it didn't was a lot of people talked about the Japanese yen being very, very weak in the last year. And if you go back and you Google the charts, you can actually see that there's like a massive drop in the Japanese yen. So I think Nintendo said, well, if we time it perfectly, this thing can come out if there's a bounce back and we can actually make this a profitable venture. I mean, obviously they're making a lot of money, but I think there's a massive, massive risk when you sell something for like $300 and um, it's worth 25% less than it was last year, right? That's insane for a business, right? And you might say, well, why don't they just increase the price? It's like, well, it's kind of hard to do that when you know you have this expectation from last year, right? If you went from something that was $300 in 2017 to $500 in 2025, and they're like, well, it's insane, So I sort of see both sides of it. What I don't appreciate or what I don't really like is the idea that they started production so early. So in places like Thailand and parts of China, the Nintendo Switch has been in production for a while now. So the idea that they could keep it a secret is stupid, right? Like how could you keep this a secret? Right. So I think it was inevitable that it was going to come out. It literally came out an hour ago, so it's 6:30 in the morning in Canada. I'm living in Vancouver, so they released it at 5:30 a.m. in the morning. Okay, but then again, remember it's a Japanese company, so they release things on Japanese time. Okay. All right. So as you said, what do we know about the system so far? Well, we know that it basically looks exactly like a Switch. It's bigger. It should have something like an 8-inch display. It's probably going to have an LCD screen. We're hoping that the OLED screen will come like 3 years down the line, which is essentially like the Pro version for Switch. We suspect that it's going to have the power of a PlayStation 4 Pro, also an Xbox Series S. In terms of games, I don't expect to see any games. We only have literally 2 minutes and 21 seconds here. So, do I expect this to be full of games? No. I do expect to see something. Maybe it's going to show us Metroid Prime 4, which obviously we've already seen. Maybe it's going to show us something like Xenoblade X, which is again coming out in March, right? So, as it is now, I was gonna say, what are the upcoming games? It's probably just gonna grab one of those. It could use Donkey Kong, which literally just came out yesterday. But all right, there we go. Okay, so let's jump in. I'll put the video up on the screen, and let's see what we see. All right, so let's go. So we get this clicking sound instead of the snapping sound because it's magnetic, right? Oh, this is nice. This is nice. Stretching, stretching. Let's put some plugs in here. We've got the USB-C, another USB-C. We have the kickstand, right? Yeah, it bends. All black. Yes, exactly. Oh, color on the inside. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, blue on the other side. Makes sense. Yeah. it's a beautiful rendition of it. Apparently, it should have Hall effect sensors, which makes me mean that you won't have the drift. Now is this a mouse? What did we just see there? I love it. I love that. That's awesome. Nintendo Switch 2. Yeah. So this is Mario Kart 9? Everybody knows that Mario Kart is coming out when this thing comes out. It kind of looks like it, I think. Is this 4K? Plays Nintendo Switch exclusive games as well as Nintendo Switch games. Backwards compatible. All right. April 2nd is when we get to hear more about it. Series of hands-on events held around the world. All right, Nintendo. So I guess the only comment I want to make is if you go back, there is a section here that says something like April 2nd. Oh, okay, Nintendo Direct. Okay, so for a second. Yeah, so wow, okay, so again, looks beautiful, it's out of the bag. And the other thing to remember is now that other companies, and this is the really big thing, third-party companies can actually announce tons of games. I mean, before they could sort of do a little bit like, like so and so and so, but now they can really announce this is coming out, this is coming out, this is coming out, this is coming out. So it's really interesting, the last Switch. I believe it's going to be just like the PlayStation 5. It's going to be on the market for another 2 years. I mean, it's going to be on the market for a while, but it's going to be like actually receiving games for about the next 2 years. And the reason is obvious: install base. Okay. If this Switch 2 is really, really, really successful, it can sell something like 20 million units in the first year. Okay. The original Switch has 150 million users. All right. So if you're a third party company and you're coming out with a game now or this year, you would be an idiot to not put it on the original Switch, right? So this is why these transitions take so long. Yes, the technology is cool, and obviously Nintendo has been working for the last 6 months making cool games for this thing. We know that. But it is a marketplace for third parties, right? For companies like Square Enix and Capcom and Konami and Microsoft. We now hear that Microsoft is going to be just pouring games into this thing, right? So it's one thing to have the system on the market, but realize, I mean, yes and no, yes and no. Like if you release a game now, even though there's only 20 million users, you will say, yeah, but I suspect that if we multiply that by 5 years, there's going to be 100 million users, right? So get your games on there ASAP. I just feel like for sales, it's kind of hard to say, well, we only sold 3 million units, but wait 5 more years and we're going to like it. It's kind of hard to say that to your investors and stuff like that. So, whereas if you just announce something for the original Switch and boom, you sell, 3 million units in the first month, that's amazing. So, not sure if the numbers that I mentioned make any sense, but you get the idea, right? Sort of short term versus long term. Anyway, cool. Um, I just don't know. I know there's leakers. I know there's actually YouTube accounts out there where people, all they do every single day is produce content about the Switch or the Switch 2 or the whatever, the PlayStation 6 or whatever. And I just don't know what the heck they're going to talk about for the next 3 months. April 4th. I mean, I suspect we're just going to be hearing about third-party games over and over and over again. I've heard so many people talking about amazing Square Enix games. I've heard people talk about Metal Gear Solid. A bunch of new games are coming out. The goal is that this thing, we didn't hear about it in today's presentation, that this will have DLSS, which is essentially AI that basically allows the computer to sort of fill in the gaps in animation. If you go back to the old days of Disney, it was really hard for animators to get like 30 frames per second. But now with computers, you can have like 720 frames a second, right? And that's essentially what DLS is doing. It's sort of it's mimicking what these in between frames would be, um, um, and essentially making it look like 60 frames per second or whatever, right? So I suspect that this thing could do 4K, or it will actually have 60 frames per second at 1080p or whatever. At any rate, it's a massive update, and AI should be an interesting piece. The actual system looks wonderful, although, spoiler alert, we already saw it like 3 or 4 days ago. Like, I mean, Nintendo was so angry right now, but anyway, good stuff, cool stuff, and I have plenty of games to play this year. I have plenty of games to play the years. I don't even touch this thing probably for like a year and a half because I got so many games lined up for the next several months. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. I got to get to my work now. Have a good day. Bye, guys.